Well, welcome everybody to the book review workshop by the Writing Center. Hope everyone's able to hear me online. Today we're going to talk about how to do a book review here at Southern. Now, who in here has done a book report? No? In your past, like maybe high school or college or something like that? Book report? Yeah. So some people make the mistake of thinking, well, book review is a book report. And I just want to up front say, no, it's actually something very different here at our school. It's a very particular document that is required of students here. Our goal today is to help you really get tuned in to what is expected when you are required to write a book review. Some goals that we're going to have today for the workshop include the following. We're going to try to overview the process of writing book reviews in Southern style, from formatting the pages to drafting each section. A note real quick, since Turabian was brought up, anyone have a copy of this in here? You're gonna wanna get one of these because again, this is the basis for what we do in terms of our style. And this document here is called our Southern Manual Style. Raise your hand if you've seen this. Okay, just a few of us. All right. This is a really critical document. Yes, you have a question? It's called a manual for writers of research papers, theses, and dissertations by Kate Turabian. And most of the time people just call it Turabian for short. Yep. And our style manual is based on Turabian and based on Chicago. And in places, we'll refer you to Turabian instead of going into all the details here. You see, this is a relatively short manual. So all we're trying to do in this is to implement Chicago for our institution and to kind of help students get familiar with Chicago, because a lot of people haven't written with Chicago style. They've done APA or MLA or something like that. And so our style manual is an attempt to kind of corral Chicago for our institution, and we have to make decisions. In our book review, we're gonna, book reviews here are gonna call for Chicago style, but they're gonna call for a particular way we do it, and we'll get into that. We're also gonna try to provide some helpful tips to approach each of the sections. So just in short, a book review that you write here at Southern, if your professor says, write me a book review in Southern style, your book review is going to consist of 4 sections. We'll go over what those are. We're going to give you tips on how to write each of those sections. And we're also going to try to equip you to write your own book reviews with excellence. So that's a goal I hope you have just in general, but anyhow, we'll do our best to move the ball forward there too. All right. So kind of outline what we're going to do today. We're going to briefly overview Southern style, formatting, and source citation. We're going to talk about the 4 sections of the book review and some suggestions for writing each one well. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have a little more time for questions. I kind of have a hard stop today because I've got to leave. But we can also, I can also entertain questions throughout. So if you have a question, raise your hand and I'll try to take as many as I can and then move forward without losing too much time. And then we'll reserve them for the end. That way we can get through all the material. So what's the purpose of a book review? That's a question I want to ask you all. Any thoughts? Yes, sir.
What I've heard is that it's for the purpose of analyzing, say, arguments in the book or pointing out weaknesses in the argument, pointing out potential good or bad points that you thought the author had.
Yes, good. That's one of the things you're doing. You're going to analyze the argument. You're going to analyze the author's thesis and purpose. You're going to provide your reader with your opinion at that point. What you think the book, what was strong about the argument, the book, the thesis. Did it fail? Did the writer meet his expectations? Were her arguments strong? Were there weaknesses, and what are they and why? So yes, analysis is one. In fact, we'll get to it in a minute, but that's probably going to be the most important part of your book review is critical evaluation. You're evaluating the book. You're not just reporting the contents of it. That separates it from a book report. Most book reports are just, what did this book say? And that's kind of what you're asked to do maybe in high school or maybe in college, but here we're wanting some critical evaluation, okay? We'll get into that in a little bit. Good answers. Another thing you're gonna do in a book review though is you're gonna summarize the book. It's gonna be relatively short. Let me direct you before we go on to a few suggested resources. I already mentioned the style manual. Also, I want to direct you to the second thing, which are templates. We actually have templates here that we provide at our school. Has anyone used those before? Raise your hand. A couple of us. So let me encourage you to use our templates. We have a research paper template, a book review template, a dissertation template. And for writing quality book reviews, you're going to want to use the book review template because all of the formatting is pretty much done for you. All you got to do is plug in your information pretty much. Okay? It's available at the library's website. The follow-up email that I send you will have a link to it. Okay? So please, please follow up and use that. It will save you tons of time and you shouldn't lose any points for formatting. Okay? A third thing you can check out is the Gospel Coalition, where there are some sample professional kind of book reviews. If you're like, well, I'd like to see one and get an idea of what one looks like, you can go there. In fact, our own Dr. Schreiner has posted there. You can see what he's done. All right, let's talk about style and formatting your book review. Of course, I've just mentioned, definitely use the template. A few things to note about the format. The title of your paper goes on the title page, and the title is nothing creative. It's actually the title of your book in all caps and italics. So the last line goes 2 inches from the top of the page. On the first page of your text, you're going to want to put the book's bibliographic information. That's going to be the first thing on the first page of text. It kind of serves like a title. So you're going to format it like a bibliography entry. And here we've provided one following Turabian. Last name, first name. So it's last name, comma, first name, period. The title of the book in headline style, in italics, period. Then the city of publication, colon, the publisher, and then the year, period. Comma, year, period. So it's gonna appear like a bibliography entry. Just note real quick that a book review doesn't have a bibliography. This is really the only work you're using. So there's no additional bibliography needed. A lot of people ask, well, should I footnote something I'm writing in my book review? And the answer is no, you don't need footnotes, don't need bibliography, because the work you're reviewing is the work you're focusing on. Yes. Could you speak up one more time? Sorry.
Does that mean we should not use any other sources of information aside from the book review for discussion? Things like that?
Well, I would be very terse. I mean, the goal is to provide a review of this book. And if you start talking about other books, you're taking away probably from talking about your book, right, that you're reviewing. So maybe for maybe a comparison or a contrast purpose, but nothing, you wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on that. Yeah. No, you wouldn't need to cite it. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more, but you won't have room for much reference to any other material. Again, it might be a passing comment. So you could say to like, similar to Terminator 1, Terminator 2 does this. And there's a reference to Terminator 1, the Terminator, I guess that's all it is. That would be like if you were doing a movie review. You're not going to talk about Terminator 1, the first one, you're going to talk about Terminator 2, right? That's what we were reviewing. So you got to stay focused. Yeah. But yeah, you won't need any citations. Just realize in a book review, the only citations you use are parenthetical ones to your book. No footnotes. So you simply give the page number in parentheses at the end of the sentence. It'll appear just like that one there. And notice that the period goes after the page number, not before it. Can you see that? When should you include a page number in your book review? Every time you give specific information or examples from the book you're reviewing, as opposed to general statements about the book. So the goal would be to allow your reader to go back and see, because you've stated something very specific that they could check out. Every time you use a quote from the book, you're going to quote the book, definitely use a page number. That way you're giving not only your reader a chance to go behind you and find that information, but you're also giving yourself credibility here that you're not borrowing in an inappropriate way. That has to do with plagiarism. Yes. Yes, it goes in parentheses. Open parentheses, your page number or range of pages. Close parentheses, period. Yes. Mm-hmm. Here's another reason to give a page number. Every time, page, I already did that one. Page numbers can reflect the fact that you've read the whole book carefully. So just realize that if you can reference the book, it indicates to your reader that you're familiar with the contents enough to know where that information is. And here at an institution where you're learning, this would be a nice help to your professor to know that you've studied the material, okay? They also make it easier for a reader to evaluate your review by comparing what you say about the book with the book itself. That's a really important thing that you'll find in research, is you're giving your reader the opportunity to evaluate your views while you're evaluating someone else's. So the references there are really important. The page numbers. All right, let's talk about quoting versus paraphrasing. This isn't a point about research in general, but it does definitely apply to book reviews. So you must use quotation marks for any sentences, phrases, or individual words that the author used in a unique way, okay? In a unique way. You want to avoid plagiarism. So if you're in doubt about it, just use quotation marks. For a short paper, you're going to avoid long quotations. Why would you want to avoid long quotations in a short paper? Yes, sir. That's right. It runs up your word count. And what do your professors, who do your professors want to hear from in this assignment? You, the student, more than what Dr. Schreiner or pick your scholar might have to say. They can go read. In fact, they're probably already familiar with the works that they're assigning you to review. So they want to hear from you. Correct. All right. So on that same line, you're going to be able to generate more quality content if you paraphrase when possible. Don't just quote. Use paraphrases so you can get more content from yourself in there. You only want to quote when there's key concepts that are expressed in moving or memorable ways. If you use a long quote, have a good reason, okay? Have a good reason. A helpful method is to incorporate short quotations, like important phrases or keywords, into your own sentences. For example, first, Gilbert outlines a few important ideas about the kingdom of God, defined as, quote, God's redemptive rule over his people, in quote, 87. Now, why quote that? Anyone have any ideas? Why include that quote? Why do you think the author of this book review would include that quote in her review? Yes. Back in the back.
It's simply a significant point. Also, it's having author's wording.
Yeah.
There's something about that in the context that makes that significant.
Yes. So, yes, excellent. Yeah. So just to say it another way, he's providing a definition that the author has coined, right? It's going to prove pivotal to the argument of the book. In fact, I would venture to say that this book probably hinges on this definition. So it's a good reason to quote it shortly for your reader to be able to see it. And that way they can understand what Gilbert's doing and understand what you're saying about Gilbert's work. When you're basing it on a definition, they can just see right in front of them, right? And that definition is probably, like I said, very pivotal to the message or the purpose, the thesis of the book, right? It would probably be defending that definition or something like that. All right, let's keep going. Now, this is a really important section. I want to talk about the divisions of a book review. Before I go any further, because we may have to move through this rather quickly, I want to go ahead and show you in our style manual, if you turn to chapter 3, you can do this, definitely do it later, but we have a whole chapter devoted to book review guidelines, style guidelines. In this, not only we talk about how to format the book review, but pay particular attention to section 3.4. It's called divisions of a book review. So keep in mind, if you don't have this style manual, you can get a physical copy of it. I know we have a copy in the library on display, probably several. I think you can get it at Fifth and Broad. You can also get the digital copy for yourself. And you can print it if you want to print it because you like paper, or you can just have the digital copy. I use a digital copy. We make it available on our webpage. You can link to it from the links I give you. What's wonderful about it is it's fully searchable. So you just do Command F, and if you're like, where's divisions of the book review, or where does it talk about commas or biblical abbreviations, just search that. Man, it'll take you right to it. It's very, very terrific day that we live in. But let me just speak briefly about the divisions of a book review. Here are some helpful guidelines about content, particularly on how much space you should devote to each division of your book review, each section. Some things you should include. The critical evaluation section here, 3.4.3, is really helpful. We provide some questions that are kind of evaluation analysis, type questions that will help you write that section, okay? Let me move on, and let's just get into what these are, all right? So in the introduction, we'll get to that. So here are the 4 sections I already told you. Introduction, summary, critical evaluation, and conclusion. Those are the 4. Remember, the most important guidelines for any book review are the specifications provided by the professor making the assignment, okay? So let me just go ahead and give you that rule in general, not just for book reviews, but for research papers, whatever assignment you're completing for a professor, whatever they say trumps everything else, okay? If they are like, I want you to use this format, and they don't want you to use Southern style, throw Southern style out for that format. Whatever they say, do. If they say, we want you to submit this single space, not double space, do single space. Just keep in mind that Turabian and Southern style is going to call for double space, except for like block quotations or something. So does that make sense? Always listen to your professor first. All right. So if they're like, hey, I want a book review, they may not necessarily want those 4 sections, those 4 divisions. They may say, here's what I want you to do on my book review. So then you just do that, okay? That does happen here. Okay. So what's the purpose of your paper's introduction? Well, a few things. You're going to tell your reader the topic of your paper. You're going to provide background information as a context for talking about that topic. And then third, and it's in italics for emphasis, you want to make your reader interested in reading the rest of your paper. Those are great guidelines for just about every paper on an introduction for any paper. Okay. For a strong introduction, here's some things you can do. You can present a problem or a question to show why the book is important. Now we have optional there because you don't have to do that. But you definitely want to introduce the reader to some main themes of the book. Main themes of the book. You can also include biographical information about the author, such as his education, training, experience, but it should only be included as it demonstrates the author's competency to write the book that you're reviewing. So I don't need to know that this author enjoys fly fishing if his book is on quantum physics or something like that. What I might want to know is where he's studied quantum physics and has he been a part of any sort of collectives or something like that. Another thing you want to be careful is don't use these honorary titles, doctor, reverend, etc. You're just going to use the first and last name of the author, and then the last name of the author basically throughout the rest. So mention the first and last name once, and then you can use the last name throughout. Here's an example of a good introduction. John Piper has an advanced degree in theology from the University of Munich and many years of pastoral experience at Bethlehem Baptist Church. As a result, notice that transition word, let the nations be glad, combines practical advice for the missions-minded church with careful theological thinking. Now, let's just pick this anatomy apart briefly. The reviewer has noted that Piper has an advanced degree in theology and many years of pastoral experience. Why talk about that? Yes.
6 of John Piper tells you kind of why he would be authoritative in this subject.
Okay, what does this paragraph inform us? Is there any keys? Are there any, can you see any connections? I'll just put it like that. Can you see any connections between the sentences? Yeah, at the back.
Theological thinking about theology and the practical stuff that experiences pastor or practical.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So just notice that his advanced degree in theology finds its way into Let the Nations Be Glad in the way of careful theological thinking about missions. And then his pastoral experience finds its way in because he can give practical advice for churches that are mission-minded, all right? So he's someone who's been there and done that in both arenas, so he can bring that to the book. That's relevant, all right? I could talk about theology, and I can talk about, churches being mission-minded, but if I've never been a pastor or a scholar, what I have to say is probably not going to be as credible, as maybe not even as helpful, So telling my reader that he has an advanced degree and that he has pastoral experience gives this book some credibility, and it communicates something about the book, that this person's not a novice. And so he's drawing on that experience, his biography, to actually generate the content of this book. All right. I'm going to skip this one. It's similar. All right. So look at your book review. This is questions you want to ask about it. Does the information in the introduction have a clear purpose? Everything needs to. Does it give your reader important background information to help understand what the book is about? Does it interest your reader in learning more about the book through your paper? Those are things you want to accomplish. So the goal, all right, we're moving on now to the summary section, all right? We've talked about introduction. Now let's talk about the summary section. What's the goal of the summary? It's to give the author's main purpose for the book and show the main steps he takes to accomplish that purpose all while being as brief as you can, all right? So you're going to answer the question, what's this book about? Essentially, you're giving the big picture. The key to writing a strong summary is to begin by finding the author's thesis. All right, so you want to identify the main argument or the primary purpose or the central theme of the book. Suggestion. You might consider putting the author's thesis, if you can identify it, state it at the end of your introduction paragraph and use it as a thesis of sorts for your paper, all right? So you would say in the end of your introduction, in Let the Nations Be Glad, John Piper makes a strong case for doing missions on the basis of Christian hedonism or something like that, right? That's like the thesis of his book. And that kind of then transitions to your summary where you draw now on that thesis to explain the contents of the book, right? To give the main themes and the main arguments. So it serves as a thesis kind of for your paper. Does everyone follow that? Okay. That's one suggestion. You don't have to do it like that, but it's one. Did someone have a question? My friend that just came in, if you could find the sign-in sheet and sign in on. Oh, you have it? Perfect. Great. All right. So one other tip is you want to use the author's thesis to help you decide what to include in the rest of your summary. So include in your summary the important arguments that support the thesis. Leave out sections that are closely related to the thesis. You don't want to have a lot of redundant content, but you want to have enough that the reader gets an idea of the book. So here's how you can organize your summary, all right? You want to avoid chapter by chapter summarizing. Chapter 1 says blah, blah, blah. Chapter 2 says blah, blah, blah. Chapter 3 says blah, blah, blah. There's several reasons for that. One is it's not a very interesting review, and in the end, it doesn't really prove very helpful because you're just kind of parroting. You're just kind of parroting what the author says chapter by chapter. Another thing is, let's say that book has 35 chapters. That's probably about 35 sentences for you. That's going to take up a big part of your review. And I can assure you, your professors probably don't want 35 sentences of summary. Yes? There you go. Yeah, because the book of the Bible has common themes, doesn't it? Yeah, and a good exegesis will note those, right? So here's two things, two methods, if you will. The first way you can do it is you can go through the book sequentially, but you want to group the chapters into sections if you can. You summarize the sections, not the chapters, okay? Another method you can take is to organize your summary according to the main themes of the book. And write a paragraph on each one of those themes. Okay. I'm going to move along. So here's some ways to evaluate your summary. Ask these questions. Is the thesis or the main point of the book clearly stated at a prominent point of my paper? For example, at the end of my introduction or the beginning of my summary? Is the level of detail appropriate? Do I cover all the main themes? Is there enough detail? Or am I just being too short, too terse, too general? Or am I giving too much detail and I need to cut back and summarize more? Is it a chapter by chapter repetition of the author's ideas? Is there too much detail? So those are questions you want to ask. keep in mind that, again, your professor isn't going to want a long, let's say you've got he says, I want you to give me a 4 to 5 page book review. If he does not want, I can assure you 3 pages of summary. Unless he says, you can give me 3 pages of summary and 1 page of critical evaluation, I'm okay with that. But otherwise, just keep in mind that this next section here, critical evaluation, is the one that's probably going to be most important, because this is where you start to generate your ideas and your opinions and your evaluation. So the goal of this section is to evaluate the book thoughtfully. Notice that word thoughtfully. I should have put it in italics, but the prof wants your thoughts. And if you were writing in academia, someone reading your review at the back of an academic journal wants to hear from you. And if you've managed to reach some point in your career where you're relatively highly regarded, people want to hear what you have to say, because it matters and it's valuable. So they can go read the book by themselves and form their own judgments. But let me just point out something to you. There's a verse in the Bible that says, of the making of many books, there is no end. Have you heard that verse? And let me just say, yeah. Let me just say that of the reading of many books, well, let me rephrase it. Of the reading of every book, it is impossible. In other words, you can't read every book. You have to pick and choose. And book reviews are a way that some people pick and choose. So if they go to a theological journal and they flip to the back because they know that this book is reviewed there, they read the review and decide whether or not they're going to go spend their time on 300 pages of material. If it's a bad review from someone that's credible and trustworthy and the reasons are good, I'll probably skip that book, because there's 100 other books that'll profit me that I know that are on my to-read list that I need to check out. Does that make sense? So this is another reason why reviews are out there. It's because there's some stuff that's worth your time and there's some stuff that's not. God bless the people who write it. And, you know, unfortunately, we don't have all the time in the world to read everything. So we have to be choosy. Anyway, that's just a little freebie for you. All right. But here, the goal is to evaluate the book thoughtfully, and you want to focus on the main strengths and the weaknesses of the book. Notice strengths, because a lot of times people think, oh, it's a critical evaluation. That means I just give criticism in the form of pointing out weaknesses. And it's not true. You can critically evaluate a book and point out strengths of the book. In fact, I encourage you to do both. Here's some things to ask while you're working on your critical evaluation section. Did the author accomplish his purpose and prove his claims? You really want to spend time answering that question and giving your reasons and giving even references to pages if you need to. Here's another worthy question. What influences the author? What perspectives does he have? He may have a bias that's affecting his thesis. That's worth pointing out. How does this book compare to other similar books? So maybe it's a sequel, maybe it's a trilogy, maybe it was a game changer in the discipline, and then it generated further books by this same author or others. You know, people reacted to it. Maybe some of the contents overlaps or disagrees. You can compare and contrast that. But again, like I said earlier, you don't want to spend a lot of time on other people's work. You want to focus on this author and on this work in particular. How useful is the book? That's a great question. And in your conclusion section, you can make recommendations. We'll get to that in a minute. But in most cases, you're going to want to include both strengths and weaknesses. So be specific and show careful critical thinking. What you want to avoid is just saying, well, I like this, or I didn't like that. again, it's a critical evaluation, and as master students, your professors are looking for you to develop your critical thinking skills. And this assignment is to demonstrate those skills where you're at and to improve your ability in verbal written communication. Sometimes that's hard to transfer what we think to words on a page. This is an exercise to help you grow in that. Do we have any pastors in the room? No? Like maybe youth ministry, or are you working for ministry? Anybody? Teachers? No? What? I'm interested to know. Is it okay? So in this room, is there anyone who, for your job or for a previous institute? Well, you probably did it at a previous institution, but for your job, or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, but you have to practice written expression regularly. I'm not talking about Facebook. I'm just talking about like real written documents. Yes, I see a couple. Well, maybe in the future you'll have the opportunity to employ it more, but definitely here. Let me just say something. I think some people think it's easy to think this way. You know, I got to come to Southern, I got to do this program, I got to write these papers, but I really don't like writing. Well, that's fair. It's not for everybody. But let me just encourage you to try to grow in your writing, because it will help you with your communication overall. Everyone's going to have to talk, right? I think everyone in this room. And, you know, when you talk, you've got to be clear. How many times does a lack of clarity lead to all kinds of problems, confusion, disagreements, pain, shame, death, killing, you know, horror, you know? And so if you're married, you'll find that out. If you're not, you may have a roommate and had to work out some disagreements. Nonetheless, writing is going to really help you with communication. And so seize the moment and say, this is the time in my life, I'm a religious institution, I can say this, that the Lord has given me to grow in my communication skills, all right? Plus, you may never know what the Lord has for you down the road. You may be in a position that you're not aware of yet. You may be in a position where you've really got to produce written content. So this is a chance for you to really make the most of this opportunity, okay? All right, that's my little speech there. Careful thinking, you gotta express that. You may be a careful thinker, but if it doesn't show up on the page, all your professor has to go on is what's written in the text that you provided him or her. So you don't want to say what you liked or disliked. You're going to really think deeply. Another thing you want to be sure to do is be fair to the author. Like, focus on the big picture issues. Like, if you're going to take issue with something the author says, make sure it's critical to the book. Don't say something like, well, there was a grammar mistake on page 55 and that kept going throughout the whole book. And no, don't do that. I mean, that's really not gonna really serve your reader to get a feel for what this book is, right? Plus, it's just not something you do. Plus, there may be an obscure point that you really do genuinely disagree with, but in the overall big picture, there may be bigger fish to fry. I mean, there's bigger things to talk about than maybe this one more tertiary point. Did you follow me on that? So just make the main things the main thing, okay? All right. Really important is to organize your paragraphs well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick plug for another workshop we give this semester. It's called Molding Mud, Crafting Effective Academic Paragraphs. I encourage you to come to that. But let me just briefly say a word here. Begin each paragraph with a topic sentence that states one strength or weakness of the book, just one. Then use the rest of the paragraph to show where you see that strength or weakness in the book, right? Where in the book, where there's some quotes or ideas. Then you're going to conclude with any strength or weakness, why that strength or weakness is important. So that conclusion sentence is really important because you want to you want to suggest to your reader why I'm bringing this up. Why does it matter? Okay. All right. Some things to remember. Remember, your summary and critical evaluation sections should be very different. In your summary, you're going to use a neutral tone because you're just reporting. You're just summarizing the book. Here's what the book says. Here's what it is about. Not what do I think it's about. You know, what do I agree or disagree? No, don't use criticism. You don't praise the author in the summary. You just show what the author said. On the contrary, in the evaluation, you're going to evaluate the author's arguments and the overall value of the book. Keep in mind in the evaluation, you're not just going to summarize, except to give examples so that you can show where you see a book's strength or weakness, all right? So that's the only reason you would summarize, because you're going to now make a point about that point, okay? All right, or points about that point, all right. So just as a quick exercise, tell me, I'm gonna click on the screen here and a sentence is gonna come up. Tell me if it's a summary, if it belongs in the summary or in the evaluation section, all right? Read it, and then I'm gonna take a poll. Does that belong in the summary section? Raise your hand if you think so. Does that belong in the evaluation section? Raise your hand if you think so. All right, we have some disagreements and some undecideds, I think. What's that? Okay, it's called it goes like this. Piper emphasizes that the weapon of prayer is crucial for the accomplishment of wartime missions. Is that a summary section sentence or an evaluation section sentence? What do you think? Say evaluation? Okay. Well, let me ask the gentleman right there with the plaid. Okay, what do you think? Why do you think so? Okay, I understand why you would say that. Let me encourage you now to evaluate this sentence in terms of strengths or weaknesses. Does this sentence can I look at this sentence and say that's a strength of the book or that's a weakness of the book because the reviewer is saying such, right? You can't really, right? It's just kind of a report on what Piper does, right? Piper emphasizes, right? Now, I could think of creative ways that could work itself into the evaluation, but I don't want to get us bogged down with that. Notice that the subject of the sentence here is Piper and what he does. Piper emphasizes. And what does he emphasize? In particular, this content after the word that, right? That's the report. It's really a report statement. And I think the strongest case would be to put this in the summary section, all right? I'm gonna move on to this one. How about this? Piper explains the relationship between a passion for God's supremacy and compassion for people. Raise your hand if you think it's summary. Okay, what if you think it's evaluation? Anyone? Undecideds, all right? I think we saw more summary hands. I want to encourage you for the same reasons. Yeah, Piper explains the relationship, all right? You're not saying whether that's a strength or weakness, you're just saying that's what he does, right? It's a summary statement. Here's what he says. Here's what he explains. How about this sentence? The greatest strength of Piper's writing is his deep reliance on Scripture. Piper explains the relationship between a passion for God's supremacy and compassion for people. Where do you think that material belongs? Raise your hand if you think it's the summary section. Raise your hand if you think it's the evaluation section. Okay, yeah, right? Because there's some key words there. What are they? Yep, greatest strength actually is. Yep, that's all right. Greatest strength, right? But did you notice that second sentence? is the exact same sentence from the second example. So it depends on what's going on, doesn't it? All right. I'm being a little tricky here, but anyhow, I'm trying to get you to think hard. All right. How about this? Piper's approach challenges others to think from a biblical perspective. Summary or evaluation? Summary? Who says summary? Who says evaluation? You think summary is it? You think it's summary? You don't know. Okay. So what, can you elaborate on that? What context are you thinking about?
The sentence before or after.
It would depend, are you saying, on the sentence before or after? Yeah, I mean, that's very well, that's a fair point. Think about this. Okay, well, hold on. Guy at the back?
I suppose especially if he says, now let's think about this from a biblical perspective. That's literally what he's saying.
What if Piper says on page 21, my approach is to challenge others to think from a biblical perspective? That's a summary. You're reporting what he said. Yeah. On the other hand, it could be along the lines, I think, of what this sister's saying. I mean, you're evaluating Piper's approach, and you're saying, based on my evaluation, it's challenging others to think from a biblical perspective, right? So it depends on how you're using it. Okay. I won't do much more of this because we're almost done. I want to leave a little time for questions. How about this? While the first three topics of the book focus on believers' motivation and means for missions, the last two sections describe unbelievers' need to hear the gospel. Summary? Evaluation? Yeah, that's summary, right? You're grouping material and saying what the book's about, right? How about this? Although, of course, Piper is right that we must choose Scripture's instruction over our own logic if necessary, this example does not seem to be a case where we have to make that choice. Summary? Evaluation? Yeah, you got it. You can see that the opinion is clearly coming out now. The evaluation of the content, right? All right, so here's some things to think about. Look at your paper. Are your summary and evaluation sections different? Does your summary section include any evaluation of the book? If so, you want to get that out of there. Just summarize, just reporting the facts. It's kind of like that old phrase from the TV show, just the facts, ma'am, or whatever, right? That's all your summary is doing. Flip side, does your critical evaluation give strengths and weaknesses, or does it just merely restate some of the content of the book? Is it just summary again, right? So you don't want to put evaluation in your summary. You don't want to put summary in your evaluation unless it's really short to lead to a point that you need to make, right? Or points, all right? Don't just merely restate the content of the book. All right, let's talk briefly about the conclusion section. We're almost done. The purpose of your conclusion in the book review is to wrap the paper, all right? So you're just trying to wrap it up. Remind your reader of the main ideas of your paper and close with what you would most like them to remember. Again, you're not rehashing the book. You're rehashing what you've said about the book, basically. You're just summarizing it, right? You're reminding your reader of the main ideas that you want them to know, and you're closing with what you'd like them to remember. And this is the fun part. In this section, you can feel free to talk about how the book has specifically influenced you. So let's take Let the Nations Be Glad by John Piper. You could say, this book really impacted the way that I think about missions in the local church. And you can be more specific than that. But you see, I'm using first person there. You can use first person. I would encourage you to avoid it throughout most of the review. You could do it in the critical evaluation, I could see, but you don't have to use first person. In fact, you could get through this whole review without using first person and just reserve the conclusion for some personal comments that you have. So remember, it's worth your time to become familiar with the style manual. Second, make sure you know the thesis and the main argument or the overarching purpose of the book, and that you clearly state what it is in your review. And then remember that your summary and conclusion should be very different. Again, you're not providing argumentation really, you're just restating what you said. All right, anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
What would be considered a short paper, for example, when you wouldn't quote too often?
That's a good question. I mean, I probably wouldn't quote very much if they said, give me 3 pages. If they give you 5 pages, you could probably quote more. If they say, I want a 7 to 8 page book review, then you have a little bit more liberty, I'd say. So you just kind of have to make a judgment call. There's no fast rule, but you definitely don't want to just in every paragraph be quoting numerous times, or you want to paraphrase in a book review. For example, let's say how are we doing on time? Got a few minutes? Look, when I listen to, I'm going to pick an old person, Roger Ebert. Does anyone know who Roger Ebert is? Roger Ebert, he's a movie critic. I don't want his review of the movie to just be quotes from the movie. Quote after quote. That would be, I'll just go I'll watch the movie if you're going to do that. I want to hear your views, all right? So a quote from the movie that's really poignant is good, like I'll be back, and how that plays in the plot. That's important. But I don't need a lot of quotes from a movie to get an idea whether or not I want to see the movie, right? I mean, and you don't want to do that about a book either. It takes away from your own material. Yeah. What else? Yes.
In the process of reading the book, I mean, do you just kind of recommend reading the book initially first, or note-taking important in that process, first read through, or how do you kind of recommend that?
That's a great question. Her question was, how do we go about reading a book? Do we take notes or not? Or, what's a good way to go about it? I would encourage you to do what works for you, because people are different. Now, I think note-taking in some form or fashion is really helpful, because you take notes while you're reading. This looks like one of the main themes. Mark it down. And that way you can come back to it when you actually write your review, for example. Or a key quote, or the first use of a key phrase or a key term. Mark the page number down. Some people will write on a separate document. Some people will type a document. Some people will write in the margins of the book. Some people will highlight the book. Whatever works for you, I would say. There's no one way to do it. But here's a key thing that everybody should do. When you're reading the book, already be reading it critically. Don't just kind of like watch it, look at it, read the sentences without processing whether it's right or wrong, whether it's true or false, whether this is a strong argument or a weak argument. Not something I would do. I would maybe already start noting what you think of the book in your notes. This is a weak argument. Make a note of that. Put the page numbers, and then you could even while you're reading the book say, here's the reasons why, and just jot down 3 reasons why you think that's a weak argument. Why it doesn't. What is it about this theme that proves critical to the rest of the book? If you can identify the thesis right away, you can always have the thesis in front of you and then be evaluating whether or not that thesis is fully and well supported. This chapter, or, this argument in this chapter doesn't really support the thesis. You can say that. I mean, there's lots of things you can include. Again, but you want to stay big and not too minute detail, Try to deal with the main argument, the main thesis, the main arguments for that thesis, the main themes of the book. And that's really all you need to do, because you won't have enough space. You can't just nitpick it. Even though there's probably some worthy things to criticize, you have to let those go and just kind of focus on the big picture things. That makes sense? Yeah, so you can highlight those along the way. What else? Yes.
Somebody gave me the tip not to cut and paste into the template. Like, don't start your document in another, don't start your paper in another document and cut into it. Just open the template and start typing in there. I wonder if that's true.
That's a good question. She says she's raising the issue of is it good to cut and paste into the template itself? Well, there's a way to do it that works, because I mean I've done it. The best I can tell you is just try to figure out how to do it. Maybe you could find a fellow student, or maybe the Garrett Fellow, or I don't know, maybe you've got a techie friend. Maybe just, if you're like me, you just kind of play around with it until it finally works out for you. Sometimes I think there may be some instances where you just can't do it, maybe because of the document you're cutting or copying and pasting from. So there may be some limitations, but you can do it depending on what you're using. You can do it. And it's a great way to do it, saves you a lot of typing. I saw another hand at the back. Yes, sir.
I guess for the, like, trying to find pieces, I guess most books are introduction,
Mm-hmm.
is that, so I guess, like, would you recommend kind of just first step finding pieces based off of the pieces?
Yeah, I mean, great question. His question is, what's the best way to find the thesis generally? And I would say the best way to find the thesis, there's no one set way, but I would, here's some pointers. First point, usually the title will tip you off. Now, it's not always clear, and some titles get kind of clever and tricky, and you don't know what they're saying. Maybe when you read the book, you'll see. But usually a title is going to indicate the topic and maybe an assertion. Another place to look is, of course, like you said, in the introduction, or I would say even in the preface, perhaps. Some authors will say, my thesis in this book is, and they'll say it that verbatim. And if they've got that for you, fantastic. They've done you a favor. In academic writing, we encourage stating your thesis as clearly and precisely and concisely as possible so your reader knows what you're arguing. And so good books will do that. Good nonfiction books, that are making an argument. So I would say, look, yeah, in the preface, you might be able to, or in the introduction, you might be able to read the back matter and get a sense of what the argument is. But you definitely are gonna, the author will probably keep going back to something throughout the book. And whatever they keep going back to, oftentimes is gonna focus you in on what their thesis is, Good question. Anyone else? I know we're after time here, but it's 4:34. We were supposed to call up at 4:30. I can probably do a few more minutes. If you want to ask questions, feel free to leave if you'd like. I want to thank you for coming. I hope this was helpful to you. We really want to help. We're here to serve you in the Writing Center. So feel free to look us up online, email us, schedule an appointment, submit a paper. I encourage you to keep coming to the workshops throughout the semester. They'll really help you. And check out our resources.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming, guys.